What is going on to all my servant fans, and welcome back to the channel. We are back breaking down this 4th season, episode 5, titled Neighbors. In this episode, we see Sean and Dorothy hosting this party for the new neighbors on Spruce Street with the plans of finally getting Leanne out of the house. Now, in the episode, we see this game of who's coming from the church, and we end with Leanne showing the Turners if she goes down, she's taking them with her. We got so much to go over in today's spoiler breakdown, but before we get into it, let's go ahead and start the conversation in the comments below. What do you all think about this 5th episode? From your pros, your cons, deeper meanings, Easter eggs, and theories, let's share those comments in the comments below. And of course, if you all enjoyed my breakdown, make sure you're hitting a thumbs up, make sure you're sharing this video, and also consider subscribing to the channel. With that being said, we got an episode to break down. Full spoilers ahead. My friends, Dorothy and Sean are on the same team and actually showing love and affection towards each other. What has this world come to? But in seriousness, I wasn't sure what we were looking at as the camera panned up, seeing Sean and Dorothy lying in bed, actually holding hands, which I actually think the brilliance of that shot is to kind of throw us off as an audience because we really haven't seen them do this in like forever. So I love the opening scene here as Sean helps her get into a wheelchair. And since episode 1, this is the first time that Dorothy has been outside the room. As she says, there's a new sheriff in town. As Dorothy looks over the railing which she fell from last season, in comes Leanne, showing some concern about her health, but she's overruled by Sean, as this is the first time we've seen Leanne and Dorothy in the same scene since episode 3 with her sleeping in her bed. As Dorothy makes her way downstairs, we see a letter slides under the door and she races towards it to get it, and she kind of hurts herself in the process, freaking everyone out for a second, but she privately shows Sean this letter. Now this letter comes from the CLS, aka the Church of the Lesser Saints, as they want to meet, but more importantly, they want Leanne back. As Dorothy comes up with the idea to throw this party for the neighbors and hopes to see through their disguise as church members so she can figure out who just moved into the neighborhood. Now, to me, it appears that Leanne was right last week in thinking that the new neighbors were a part of the church, so her senses were definitely correct on that. As Dorothy continues to put her foot down, and she wants Julian to be out of the house during this party, but we see Julian is sticking by Leanne and reminds them of their past failures of getting her out of the house. Now, we will be having a conversation about Julian a little bit later, but let me know, where do you all stand with Julian? Do you think that he will stand strong with Leanne? Or by the end of this episode, after the events, do you think he's going to go back on hashtag Team Turners? I really appreciated the candidness in this conversation between Sean and Julian in this next scene, because the show has really kind of tiptoed around and acknowledging that Leanne has these supernatural powers, and just hearing Sean say she's got powers, her mind is connected to the world and she's dangerous. To me, I really appreciate it. But Sean challenges Julian, who jokingly said that Leanne isn't from a Stephen King creation, but pay attention to all the strange things she's capable of and come back to him, which we'll talk about that moment. And Sean had some truth in that moment there. But again, I'm just pleased that the show is openly stating that she has powers. In my mind, means that there are going to be some other reveals coming soon, and I'm referring to the acknowledgement of Dorothy remembering what happened to Jericho. So let me know if you all were pleased that they're finally kind of openly speaking about the supernatural things going on in this house. As one by one, we see Sean inviting the neighbors to this party, and I loved as an audience member, as we're watching him talking to these people, we're trying to figure out who's a member, who's not a member, and I think we can all agree that when Sean goes to the young couple house, there definitely seemed to be something off with them and that they might be members, because how else would they know that there was a party going on before they even spoke to Sean? Cut to Dorothy noticing Leanne outside with her cult, showing them drawings and how these things came true, and to believe if you want something to happen, write it down and it'll come to you as long as you believe. Almost to me in this moment, this seemed like Leanne was showing them her scriptures as we see her members writing down what they want, and we will definitely be focusing on that scene a little bit later because I think it ties into what happens at the end of this episode as we see Leanne continues to flex her creepiness muscle and lightly Dorothy warning Sean with a knife in her hand, talking about how deadly things in the wrong hands can be. See that she tells him that nothing will change about the fact that she loves this family. I want you all to notice all the warnings that Leanne has given the Turners, not only in this episode, but throughout this season. She's letting them know she's very, very close to really snapping. I really personally enjoy the arc that we're getting from Leanne so far, and her really embracing this darkness, and the way the show has handled that has been really well in my opinion. And I'll be honest with you all, she even scares me at points. As we cut to the party, as we see Sean interacting and making small talk, trying to see if he can figure out who's a member, was so fun and entertaining to watch, especially Dorothy being in the mix and them working together, but also Dorothy working her magic, because we haven't seen her be herself all season long. And while her bluntness can be a little bit over the top at times, it was just great to see the old Dorothy back in her old form. Also, I had to point this out. I love the return of the incredible food being made by Sean, and also how metaphorically it speaks to what's going on, as we see the house was made into a cake and we see the guests eating. And I think there's a possible connection going on here in regards to them eating the house, kind of connects to Leanne eating away at the Turners and also slowly destroying the house from within. I love that touch in the episode. But also, we see someone taking a piece out of the cake and it's from the front of the house. That definitely, to me, foreshadowed the last shot of this episode. Now, right now, the neighbors in question are the married women, the older couple who Leanne met last week. We have the new couple that we met in this week's episode. And right now, like I said, my money's on this young couple, especially after Sean had that awkward conversation about their wine. But was it too obvious that they were potentially the members of the church? Because I would imagine after multiple failed attempts, the church would probably step their game up. Am I right in that situation? But we'll talk about one of my biggest criticisms of this episode. Before we get there, we see Leanne makes her presence felt and she joins the party and starts to question the neighbors about why they moved to Spruce Street despite all the alarming crimes going on recently. While this is happening, we see Leanne has sent her members to the houses to see if they can find something connecting them to the church, and surprise, they find a painting indicating that this particular home shows that there are members of the church there. But the question is, who home is this? We'll get to that in a second. But again, seeing Dorothy and Sean question the neighbors about their beliefs, thumbs up or thumbs down on the Bible. Have you ever lived on the farm? I really just enjoyed and had a good laugh with those scenes. But it goes to show them working together is a lot of fun, and it's an element I missed a part of this show, and we haven't seen this in a couple seasons. But as Dorothy notices the mark on one of the guests' necks, she sends him outside as well as Leanne, but it appears that Dorothy got him wrong instead. Remember I mentioned last week how this guy is up to something, and it just turns out that he was, but he's just a married man who's in an open marriage, and he's a creep who hits on young girls who can be old enough to be his granddaughter. So let me know what you all thought of that moment, as we see Leanne questioning Dorothy and wonders why she just can't be nice to her. And I love the bluntness here from Dorothy as she tells her straight up she doesn't care for Leanne and she never has cared for her. And I just love the seriousness in Dorothy, that she just had enough of Leanne. But again, I remind you all, Leanne is on thin ice with the Turners. But we see that this is calling for a desperate call, as we see Sean being instructed to cut the power off to move things along. Now, I always have to praise the show because I believe it has some of the best production design. The sets are incredible. The lighting department is fantastic, especially in this scene, as we see the lights being cut off and we have the different colors. And of course, Leanne gets the red color. I just love how it sets the mood. But we end this episode with Leanne watching and listening to the conversation between Sean and Dorothy, talking about getting her out of the house. Love the mood yet again, the lighting, and surprise, surprise, the members from the Lesser Saints finally show up and they start to take Leanne. But let's talk about this here. Y'all remember Julian told the Turners about what happens when you try to get her out of the house, as we see them putting a bag over her head, try to tase her. The house is literally coming apart, and we almost see Sean die as the chandeliers almost falls on his face, but I believe Leanne stopped that. Again, going back to that scene with that knife in the hand, I think this was another warning from Leanne, like, you guys have one more opportunity, as we see Leanne looks at the Turners and tells them, we're family. What will it take for you all to understand that? What a great line. What a great scene. The tension was there. The scariness was there. Again, I just thought that this was just so well put together. But going back to that moment there, I couldn't really make out who were those people attacking her. Obviously, they're from the Lesser Saints, but I am to believe that those people were not a part of the party. So I don't think we've met these characters quite yet. But let's talk about this here. Last shot of this episode is we start to go outside and there is a huge hole in the street as Leanne looks down and begins to have that sinister smile that we've been seeing this season. And we see the members of her cult coming to her, gather around her. And the question is, was this a drawing that Leanne did? Or let's go back to that scene when she was talking to her members about drawing. I actually went back and looked, and if you all notice on the screen now, this was the third page of Leanne's journal, and it appears to be a drawing of Leanne either doing the scene that we just witnessed, or is her sitting down looking over the city, similar to the shot that we get in the opening credits. Let me know what you all thought about the symbolism there, and do you all think that we saw that drawing happen in real time, or is that something that's foreshadowing the end of the season? Also, going back to that exact scene with her talking to her members, notice on the screen now, this was a shot of a blurry image of someone drawing that black hole. So again, it makes me question, was that Leanne showing her abilities and she drew this hole in the ground? Or are we seeing that Leanne has the ability to spread her powers to her believers? Or is it just all of the same? We're seeing her powers grow, her members' powers are starting to grow, and that creates the hole. Let me know your thoughts on that. But overall, just my review of this episode, this gives me hope that maybe in the following weeks we'll get a satisfying conclusion, because in this episode they managed to acknowledge the powers of Leanne. They're no longer siren away from that element, and also seeing 2 of the 3 members of the Turners banding together is just such an interesting dynamic to me. And again, I go back to Julian. Will he stand his ground? That idea of them being split to me creates so much great tension. But speaking of Julian, will this be the sign that Sean was referring to earlier in the episode, that this will make him join them and leave Leanne after what she did and showing the capabilities of her destruction? But also, speaking of that, I truly do believe that this was the final warning from Leanne. She let Bev and Bobby slide. She's let all the slick comments about Dorothy and the secret slide. But I think this is her officially saying to the Turners, this is your last chance. If you continue to try to get me out of the house, I will not only destroy you, but everything you've built. Let me know your thoughts on that. But getting back to criticisms, my biggest criticism, not only in this episode, but in this entire series in general, is how stupid and unprepared are the members of the Lesser Saints. Every single time they try to get her, it's just a joke at this point, and I can't seem to take them seriously at all. Why haven't they poisoned Leanne or given her sleeping pills or something, put in a bag over her head and try to tase her? I mean, come on. And when is Uncle George going to step in? So again, not only in this episode, but this entire series, the Lesser Saints have gotten lesser and lesser menacing, lesser scary to me, and I just wish that they would just make them more serious. So let me know what you all feel about that. But wrapping up this video, direction was great. The framing of the shots and the lighting was fantastic, especially at the end. And yeah, I think this might be my favorite episode of this season so far, and match that with the previous episodes. I'm thinking they're building to a good ending for this series. At least that's my hope. So go ahead and start to leave your comments in the comment section. Who do you believe lived in that house with that painting? What was that hole created from? Leanne's powers, her members' powers, or both? And with Sean and Dorothy now working together, what do you see their next move being? And will the result of what happened in the episode, would it be a permanent thing that we're going to see the house just be damaged and the street be damaged in the following weeks? Let's talk about that. And for all my M. Night fans, if you haven't already, check out my review for Knock at the Cabin. I also have an Ending Explained breaking down that film. So if you do get to watch those videos, leave a comment saying that you came over from this video. And also in the comments right now, put hashtag Team Turners or hashtag Team Leanne. Let me know your thoughts on that. Again, before we wrap up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, stay tuned for some future reviews, including I'm going to have a recap of every episode of You Season 4 Part 1 coming this weekend. You all have been awesome. Hope you're staying safe. Like I said, come and join the community. Check out my reviews for this season and all the seasons of Servant. Check out my most recent breakdown, and we'll catch you all on the next video.